specifically on drugs. We may look at some other items such as homeopathic medicines or medical devices, not necessarily food, but the main focus will be on drugs. So when it comes to drug registration, how drugs are imported, how drugs are monitored for when we find them on the market, let's look at how the FDA control all these things. So the first one will be sales of drugs. So there are supposed to be prohibitions on sales of drugs. Remember, all classes of medicines are restricted. They are not exempted, and therefore there are some rules that governs the sales, storage, even the administration of drugs do have rules and regulations governing it. So let's look at it. So if you're a person, it is a crime or is an offense if you sell drugs and the other product that falls under the jurisdiction of FDA, but that drug has a substance in it or on it that can cause injury to the health of the user. This is an offense. So the drug that you are going to sell to an end user shouldn't cause any injury to the end user. If it doesn't have anything that will cause an injury, but the directions that you have given, the dosage regimen can also cause an injury to the end user, then that one too is an offense. The drug could also have some filthy or rotten substances, or the drug itself might have decomposed or have any foreign matter as part of it that is not permitted. And if this is likely to cause an injury, then of course it is also an offense. If the drug has been adulterated, very soon we'll look at the meaning of adulteration, then that one too is an offense. Even when it comes to the time that you are preparing the drug, when you store it, during packaging, if all these things are done under insanitary conditions, of course, preparing drugs, packaging them, storing them under insanitary conditions will pose a threat to the quality and safety as well as the efficacy of drugs. And therefore, if you do this, that also is an offense. So all of these things, if you sell drugs and you expose the drugs to some of these negative inputs, of course, it's likely to cause a problem and it's going to affect as well as the efficacy things of drugs, efficacy and quality, and that will affect the health of the public. All of these things are therefore deemed as offenses. For adulteration, when do we deem a drug that this drug has been adulterated? When do we say that this drug has been adulterated? If I quite remember, it's a past question that they've asked about 5 years ago. So they created a case trying to depict a case of adulteration, and the candidates were asked to give a term for the action above and try to state 5 additional ways by which this same act could be done. So different ways by which drugs could be adulterated in simple terms. That is what they were asked. And of course, for these slides, all the actions on these slides is deemed as an adulteration. So if you perform or you do any of these, then it means that you have adulterated the medicine. Let's look at them. The first one is if a constituent of the drug has in whole or in part been omitted or abstracted. So you have a drug, you claim that, for example, it's a compound analgesic preparation, let's say diclofenac, 50 milligram, plus paracetamol, 500 milligram per tablet. That is what you have labeled the drug that it contains. Then we check the drug and we realize that the whole tablet doesn't have neither the paracetamol nor the diclofenac. The drug is just made up of excipient, no active ingredient that you have labeled. So it means that you have omitted in whole the active ingredient, or you have abstracted it. It could also be in part. For example, maybe you've labeled it diclofenac with paracetamol. We do the analysis and we realize that now it only contains paracetamol. The diclo is not in there, but the drug has been labeled as both diclo and paracetamol. So in part, you have omitted some of the ingredient or abstracted. If you do this, it is an act of adulteration. If a damage to or the poor quality of the drug has been concealed in any manner, so in this case, the drug is deteriorating. It's getting, for example, to the end of the expiry, or due to poor storage conditions, it has even changed color, or it is smelling or something, giving a bad odor. Then you try to add some nice product that can mask the odor, just to conceal that bad odor. Or if the color has changed, everybody knows that paracetamol is almost white. Then it becomes like colored. You try to add something that will bring back the white color. It means that you are trying to conceal the damage to the drug. And if you do that, it is also considered as an act of adulteration. A substance of the drug has been substituted wholly or in part. So you have your drug, and the drug is supposed to be, say, naproxen. Naproxen is very expensive as compared to brufen or para or diclofenac. So you label the product as naproxen 500 milligram per tablet. You go in there, there is no naproxen, but there is ibuprofen. So it means that you have substituted the drug in whole. Or you decide, instead of keeping the 500 milligram, you decide to put in the 250 milligram and rather add, say, 200 milligram ibuprofen to make up for the reduction, but still try to keep the efficacy. In that case, you have substituted in parts, and therefore this constitutes an act of adulteration. The next one is a substance has been added to, or mixed, or packed with the drug to increase its bulk or weight, or reduce its quality or strength, or to make it appear better or of greater value than it is. So in this case, for example, normally it happens to food substances. Granite paste, for example, you go and buy some. Some people can even mash or grind avocado seeds and mix it with the granite paste just to increase the bulk for excessive profit. So you go and buy something on the market, and since the drug, maybe you sell it based on weight, you mix it to increase its bulk and therefore the weight to make exorbitant profit. If you do that, that is also an act of adulteration. If the drug contains an additive that is not expressly permitted by the national standards, the codex, that is the Codex Alimentarius Commission, their standard, or the regulations, or even when it is in excess of the quantity permitted. So in this case, MMT, magnesium trisilicate, for example, used to have chloroform as part of the formula for preparation. That one was serving as a preservative, and it also confers some nice taste to the products. But now it has been found to be carcinogenic, and therefore it shouldn't be part. So normally those products without the chloroform don't have nice taste as compared to the previous one. So people may not like yours. You still decide to add it so that the nice taste will be there for people to patronize yours. That ingredient has been banned, chloroform, because it can cause cancer, and therefore it is not permitted anymore. So if you add it to MMT as an example, it is an act of adulteration. The tail end to you making a certain ingredient in excessive than permitted. So let's say diclofenac the cutoff point per tablet is, let's say, 225. But you want people to have the view that yours is more potent. And therefore, secretly, instead of giving in or putting in 225 per tablet, you added 300 per tablet, but label it 225 so that when they take it, they will have super efficacy. If you do that, then of course it's in excess of what is permitted by the national standards, and therefore it's an act of adulteration. If a constituent of the drug exceeds the amount stated on the label, obviously, or as permitted in the regulation, so similar to what I just stated, if it exceeds what you have written on the label, then it is also an act of adulteration. And the last one, apart from all the above, if the drug's nature, its substance, or quality is affected negatively in any way, so if it has been affected to its detriment in any way, once it is negative, it is also deemed as an act of adulteration. Please do not forget these different acts of adulterations, because this is a potential question that can drop. Last captain, any issue on the different meanings of adulteration?
No, please.
All right.
Hello, Doc.
Any member of the class?
Hello, Doc.
Yeah, hello.
Yes, please. With respect to the first scenario with para and the diclofenac, and the third one, how different are they? Because in the first one, if I heard you right, you've you are supposed to give the diclofenac and para combination as a one drug. So you take part of the diclo and prepare the product. And the third scenario was you taking out part of the drug and presenting it as a full strength. I want to know the difference.
So the first and third, you see, the first one is talking about omission. You have omitted it, it's not even there. And the third one is about substitution.
Okay.
So the third one, if it's supposed to be para, you go in there, we see indomethacin. You have substituted it. The first
Okay.
one, you said is para, but there is no para in there at all. Neither do you even have another drug replacing it. So you have omitted it or abstracted it. So it's just like an excipient that the person is going to take. There is omission. The drug is not there. But the third one is substitution. You have changed it. It's supposed to be amlodipine. We check it is nifedipine.
Thank you, Doc. I get it now.
Right. Any other question? Right. So let's continue. Now, adverts. When are we supposed to advertise on medicines? Is it a free range, or are there rules and regulations or restrictions? Nobody is supposed to advertise a drug to the general public, whether you claim that it can treat a certain condition, prevent or cure any disease or a disorder or any abnormal physical state. You are not supposed to advertise your drug that it can treat, prevent or cure any disease or any abnormal physical state, unless that advert has been approved by the FDA. So before you can, hello?
So sorry to cut you in, but I wanted to clarify this. When it comes to adulteration, is it only with respect to an active ingredient, or it could be an excipient too?
It could be an excipient too.
Because
So
different
those that I
companies.
cited, those
Okay.
that I cited are just examples. So some excipient too could be
Okay.
expensive, and somebody may decide to go for a very cheap one, poor quality one, and claim that he actually use the expensive one or the top quality one. So both active ingredients and excipients, adulterations could come from there.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
All right. So you can't do any advert on any drug and claim that you can use it for treatment or cure or prevention, unless that advert has been approved by the FDA. Even with this, there are situations that not even the FDA can approve. So there are situations where FDA, even if the thing is okay and if you advertise, it will be normal. There is no wrongdoings there. Even the FDA can still not give you the go ahead to advertise, especially drugs that are listed within the fifth schedule of the Public Health Act. So despite the above statement that we say you can't advertise unless the FDA gives you the approval, drugs that we find or conditions that we find under the fifth schedule of the Public Health Act, not even the FDA can permit you to advertise on them. So by now, I'm sure you've read through the schedules and you know the kind of conditions that are there. I'm not saying you should go and commit them into memory, but note that any condition that you find there, even the FDA cannot give you the go ahead to advertise your drug on those conditions that whether they have a cure, prevention, or treatment for it. No. So conditions like every disease that relates to the reproductive system, they are not allowed to do advert on it. Even the FDA cannot give you the go ahead to do so. HIV, STIs, epilepsy, tetanus, so many conditions, alcoholism. You can't advertise that you have a drug that can treat alcoholism. All those conditions are there. And once the condition is mentioned there, you cannot advertise on them. Even the FDA cannot approve any advert on drugs used for the management, prevention, treatment, cure of those conditions. Are we okay, class captain?
Yes, please.
All right. Okay. So now, even before the drug comes onto the market, we need to manufacture those drugs. So FDA, they don't wait for you to bring your product before they regulate it. They start all the way from the manufacturing point. Because if you wait, then everything may go bad and you start just not registering drugs. So you have to deal with it from the root. So they also control manufacturing, the starting point. So where the drugs are manufactured, FDA, they also control to make sure that even before you apply for registration, the drug will have top quality, it will have a very strong efficacy and safety issues. So a person shall not manufacture a drug for sale. You don't do that unless the manufacturing operations is carried on or is supervised by a pharmacist. Of course, we have the technical know-how to supervise and guide the manufacturing processes. Not only the pharmacist, if you have any qualified person that FDA they've approved and they are sure that that person to do have the technical know-how. Normally, those who do chemistry or biochemistry, so the chemists, if they've done additional courses, depending on FDA, they may also approve them to supervise the production. But if you're a pharmacist, then you stand the best chance among all to supervise the manufacturing process, and FDA will approve that. So yes, the manufacturing process should always occur under the supervision of a pharmacist or somebody who has been approved by the FDA, and FDA, they are sure that the person also has acquired specialist knowledge when it comes to drug manufacturing. So that is one condition that will permit somebody to manufacture drug. The second condition is that the conditions under which the manufacturing process is carried out should try and go in line with the guidelines of the FDA. So FDA, they do have guidelines on manufacturing. They have their standards when it comes to manufacturing. And if you go by those standards, it is likely that your drug is going to have quality, efficacy, and safety. Your drug will have those properties. So this is to ensure that your article will be of good quality and safety when it comes to its use. So one, you should have somebody who is supervising the manufacturing process and the conditions under which the manufacturing is carried out is to go in line with the guidelines of FDA to ensure safety, efficacy, and quality. Now, before you make any attempt to manufacture any drug, you need to send in an application for that purpose. So an application for approval by FDA for manufacturing it's a it's not a may. So you don't have any option. It's compulsory. So shall be made to the FDA. And the FDA, depending on how they analyze things and whether it will go in line with their standards or not, they may grant you the approval or they may not grant you the approval to manufacture product. So you must first apply for that permission to manufacture drugs. And they have standards when it comes to the application. That all the things that you need to meet before they give you the go-ahead to manufacture that product. Now, apart from manufacturing, obviously in Ghana, most drugs are imported from outside. We have a lot of medicines that we import. Do you just bring in any drug anyhow or what? So there are going to be restrictions, and FDA, they are still in charge. Once it's a drug, it falls under them. So both manufacturing locally or when you are importing a drug that has been manufactured outside Ghana, they have restrictions. So restrictions on both importation
Hello,
of
Doctor.
drugs.
Hello,
Yeah,
sir.
hello. Hello.
Yes, please. I don't know if I'm the only one, but your line has started breaking.
Okay, class captain.
Hello, sir.
Is it same with you?
No, please.
Okay.
She must have not checked her network, but it's okay today.
All right. So let's
Yes.
continue. All right. So restrictions on importations and manufacture. The minister, and of course, under this section, when we are talking about Public Health Act, the Health Professions Act, IFRA, Standard Authority, and those things. Once we say the minister, of course, we are talking about the Minister for Health. So when it comes to restrictions on importation and manufacture, the minister may use executive instrument to prohibit any of them, to prevent any of them. And the last time we discussed about the meaning of executive instrument, this is the powers that the minister is granted by the executive arm of government. That is the president, his vice, and the cabinet. They have special powers that they can use, execute, without even getting the permission from parliament. So when they use this type of powers, it is called executive instrument. If the minister uses any power that is granted by parliament, it is termed as legislative instrument. Normally, legislative instrument, they will have to argue on it in parliament, so it takes a lot of time. But when it comes to issues like this, you are importing a drug into the country and then they think that it can cause harm to the public. That's not the time to be dragging issues, going to parliament for them to discuss. No, no, no. It is urgent. It's about public health. And in that case, the minister will have to use executive instrument. Just one meeting, the cabinet will decide on it, and then the minister will use that power to act, to prohibit, for example, importation of medicines, even the manufacturing of medicines, or when you also produce here and you want to export, they can also ban you from doing that. Advertisement, the minister can also use executive, because once the information gets out there, we are done. Remember, I don't know whether you've had some experience on this. Once they hear the advert on radio or TV, they come to you, they want to buy it. You try to even advise them, they will still insist, no, because of the advert that's taking over everywhere. I remember there used to be this drug, something 441, that on it the label was meant for dysmenorrhea. But on the radio, they were talking about Attakorah and like candidiasis and those things. So the ladies will come, they want to buy the thing, 442 or something. You advise them that no, even showing the package to them that look at the indication. This is what they've written on the indication. For menstrual pain, they will still insist, no. Obviously, they are going to use it for the Attakorah issue. On the label, it is for menstrual pain, and they will still buy it. But normally, when they buy it on 3-4 occasions, they realize that it doesn't work. Then they will come back to you for you to treat them for the candidate. So we don't wait and waste time for you to advertise before. No, we stop you right there. And then sale of a drug and other commodities specified in the instrument. So when it comes to importation, manufacturing, exportation, advertisement, the minister can use an executive instrument, which normally he can easily acquire and stop you, because these situations demand urgent actions to stop you. Any questions? Any questions? Okay, so now let's look at how somebody will apply for the registration of a drug. So this is the actual deal. You have a drug that you have manufactured locally, or you want to import it to the country. So whether you are importing it or you are manufacturing the thing locally, before the drug will be allowed to be on the market, you have to register the drug. And by registration, FDA, of course, will make sure that they analyze the drug, make sure that the drug meets their standards, and therefore it will have quality issues. As in no quality issues, it will be of top quality, it will be safe for consumption, and it will give you the efficacy for the particular condition you want to use it for. So let's look at how drugs are registered. Remember, it is both foreign and locally produced drugs that we are talking about. So before you register for, as in you apply for registration for your drug to be approved, you need to apply. So an application for registration of a drug, SHA is a SHA. Whenever you see SHA, then it means it's a serious business. You don't have any option than to go by this. If it's a me, then it is here or there. SHA means this and only this. So shall be made to the FDA in the way that the FDA will decide. And it should be accompanied by the application fee, which is the prescribed fee. So the FDA dictates how you apply for registration of a drug. And it's a SHA, you have to do it. You can't bring your drug on the market without the drug being registered by FDA. It doesn't matter whether it is locally or foreign manufactured product. You need to apply for registration. The FDA, they shall, so that one too is on them. They shall register, but there are conditions attached to it. So the FDA shall register the drug if the FDA, they are satisfied that your drug complies with their prescribed standards. Not only that, and that the manufacturing operations for the drug comply with the prescribed current codes of GMP, good manufacturing practice. So yes, it means that they are going to look at your drug, they will analyze your finished product, the samples that you bring. They will analyze it in their own lab. But that is not the end. It means that they are also concerned about your manufacturing site, meaning they may even go there and do some inspection and make sure that whatever that you are doing there is in line with GMP. And the focus or the target of GMP is about quality, safety, and efficacy. 4 cardinal points are normally considered under GMP. Number 1 is your raw materials. Number 2, your premises. Number 3, your personnel and the equipment. So all these are the 4 main things that FDA, they focus on under GMP. Does it meet the standards when it comes to your premises, the equipment you are using for production? Do you have the qualified personnel for the production, and your starting materials, your raw materials, are they of top quality? You start with bogus materials, you end up producing bogus products. If all these are in line with the principles of good manufacturing practice and the standards of FDA, then you are even sure that you are going to meet the quality control analysis. It is likely that your drug is going to pass the quality control test. And therefore, FDA, they are concerned about both the final product that they will analyze and also your manufacturing site doesn't meet with the standards of GMP. FDA will look at both. So the authority, they may charge. So here is a may. So it's a bit flexible. They may or may not. So the FDA may charge an applicant the cost that the FDA may incur for the purposes of carrying out good manufacturing practice and inspection for laboratory investigations prior to the registration. So of course, FDA will have to spend some cash to analyze your drug. Should there need be, they will have to travel to your manufacturing site for inspection. If you are importing the drug from outside, they may have to travel to that country and inspect that manufacturing plant. If it's a local plant, they will have to travel there. So FDA may charge you. If they have to travel by air, they will have to charge you. If they have to travel by land and maybe sleep in some hotels for the purpose of the inspection at your manufacturing plant, they may charge you. So here is a may. So they may or may not. Now, an applicant may at any time, that one is on you, withdraw your application. You brought in the application, so you are free to also go in there and withdraw your application. But the only thing is that your prescribed fee, which is the application fee that you have paid, will not be given back to you. So at any point in time in the process where FDA are trying to analyze your drug and assess all your documents, you may go there and then withdraw your application. But they are not going to pay you the application fee that you've paid for the purpose of drug registration. Class Captain, any queries?
No, please.
Any queries? All right. Okay, so let's continue.
Hello, Doc.
Yeah, hello.
So please, in this instance, the Pharmacy Council has nothing to do with anything concerning registration and inspection of the premises. Nothing.
No. When it comes to manufacturing plant drug registration, no, that is solely on FDA.
Okay.
Pharmacy Council actually deal with drugs because where they also register, we have drugs there. But when it comes to drug control, it is actually the work of FDA. Pharmacy Council, they come in because in that premises that they also license or register, you will have drugs there. And of course, when they go for inspection, the things that they may look out for, their suspicions of wrongdoing and those things could be from the side of the drug, and therefore they will also inspect. But the true agency with total control about drugs is FDA. Are you okay?
Yes, Doc. Thank you.
All right. So again, a person shall not manufacture, prepare, import, export, distribute, sell, supply, or exhibit for sale a drug unless the article has been registered by the FDA. So you can't do anything when it comes to drugs, except when that drug has been registered with the FDA. Despite the above, there are some situations where you can be allowed to do some of these things with drugs before the drug is actually registered. For example, this information or this restriction, it doesn't apply to when it comes to importation of drugs for your personal use. In that case, the FDA may give you a different permission. So import permits for drugs for personal use. So maybe you are in Ghana or you are in US and you are relocating to Ghana, and that you have a certain condition that demands that you use a particular type of medicine, and that drug in Ghana is not available. So you always have to import that drug for your personal use. So in that case, you may not have to go through all these processes when it comes to drug registration for personal use. But FDA may grant you import permit that is for personal use. So very short process, and then you are permitted to import the drug for your personal use. And of course, it goes with quantities. If the drug is for your personal use only, obviously, it will not be the same when it comes to the quantities as when you are importing the drug involved to supply for public use. Again, in the process of registration, you have to bring samples. And if your drug is a foreign drug, importing the samples for registration as in purposes, that one to FDA will allow you. You are now bringing the samples for analysis. So that one too is exempted. So these are the two situations where somebody will be allowed to import drugs without going through the normal registration process. Other than that, any other situation, you will have to go through the normal registration processes. Now, the FDA may approve the registration of a drug unless or when you have gone through the following conditions. Number one, you have to make an application. Obviously, you have to put in an application. So you will not be in your house and the FDA will come to you that, yes, let's register your drug. You have to go there and put in an application that you want to register a certain drug. And then number two, after you've put in an application, the FDA also have to conduct the necessary investigations. And then they will make sure that they are satisfied with all the conditions, the standards that they've set. They are satisfied that your drug meets with their requirement. So putting in the application, FDA doing their necessary investigations, both on the quality control measures and even the manufacturing plant, your site. And if they are satisfied, they may approve your drug registration for you. If they are not satisfied, then it means that they will not approve. Now, where the FDA refuses to approve or approve, so it is either they will approve or they will not approve. When they make their decision whether to approve or not approve, the CEO of the FDA shall, so whether approve or not approve, the CEO shall inform the applicant, the one who put in the registration, in writing, not verbally, not just phone call, of their decision, whether they've approved or not, and even the reason behind the approval or no approval within normally 180 days. No, that one is for clinical trials. So within 30 days that they've made the approval. But normally when you make the application, it may have to take about 180 days because it goes in with they doing all their investigations and those things. So you have to give them about 6 months to do the investigations and all those things. But when they come to a conclusion and the FDA have decided on it that, yes, you have been approved or not, the CEO will have to inform the person within 30 days of the decision, whether they have approved or not. By the moment you put in the application, it may take up to about 180 days because they need time to do extensive investigations when it comes to the product. By the moment they are done, the CEO can wait, but within 30 days, in writing, they will inform the applicant when it comes to the registration, whether they have approved or not. Now, if it goes bad, let's say they did not approve, and of course, if the drug is not approved, the applicant will not be happy. So where the applicant is not satisfied with the decision of the authority, obviously, if they approve, you'll be satisfied. So when they are not satisfied as to the no approval, then the applicant can make another application to the same authority. You are not going anywhere. When it comes to drug registration, if they fail to approve your drug and you are not happy, come back to the FDA. Remember when we were dealing with the Pharmacy Act, we said when they punish you and you are not happy, you can't go back to the council, but you go to where? The High Court. When it comes to drug registration, we will talk about clinical trials too. So don't mix up the two. When it comes to drug registration, if you are not lucky and your drug is not approved, do another application where same FDA, but there is timeline on it. You have 60 days from the day that the decision was given to you that your drug wasn't approved. You have up to 60 days to make another application, which means based on the reasons that they will give to you, you go back and do some corrections. Of course, you are not going to send them the same as in information upon which you were not approved. So based on the reasons given, because when it is approved or not approved, they will tell you and give you reasons for that decision. So based on the decision, you also do your corrections, and within 60 days, you are to return to the FDA. Day number 61, if you go back to them, they will not mind you. Upon this second application, if FDA, they are satisfied now, then they can approve. But if they are still not satisfied, they will still reject the registration. Class captain, any question?
No, please.
Any member of the class, any question?
So, Doc. Hello, Doc.
Hello?
Yeah.
Hello?
So, i.e., the applicant has no cause to challenge the FDA's authority as to maybe he thinks he's done everything right. For some reason or no how, he's denied. He can't go and challenge it.
No. So the reason that they will give, are those reasons legitimate? They have given you reasons as to why your drug wasn't approved. So the only thing you can do is if you know that upon the first application, those things were done, you need to tell them that yes, those things, maybe they did not see those things and therefore they are raising issues. So you need to, as in, point back to them that, oh, those things were added. If genuinely those things were not added or those things were not done, then you correct them, then you resend the application. That is all. They are the regulators. If they say that ABC are not on point, you can only correct them. You can't challenge them. Are you okay?
Yes, Doc.
Yes. All right. Any other question? All right. Now, during the application, if you are lucky, and then the FDA, they approve your registration, then what happens? Registration of the drug, what happens? They will enter into, hello?
I'm sorry to take you back, but in case of the representation, the resubmission, and then they still don't agree, does he have a chance to go back to make like a resubmission again after the first resubmission?
That one wasn't stated in the act. So in that case, I'm sure it will depend on the FDA,
Yes,
whether you'll be given. But normally in practice, what happens is that if you go for the second time and it doesn't work, people will try to, as in, consult some of the FDA guys. They pay them for them to do the right thing for them, like outside their working hours. They guide them to do the right thing, and then they present the application. That is what people normally do. So you are going to a certain office, you go there, number one, like you are going for ethical clearance. Normally it happens. You go there first time, they say, no, go and do ABCD. They deny you. You do it again and they are still complaining. You have to be smart. What do? You need to talk to either the person doing that or some of the guys there for them to guide you and then do the correct thing. You need to go by their standards. It's not by your standards, so that they will not deny you again. You just give them something small. It's not that you are bribing them, but you are paying them. You are doing consultation. So you consult them for them to help you to bring in the right or the correct application. then it is approved for you. You need to be smart. You don't go there and be doing things your own way, and whenever you go there, they deny you. It means you are not smart. Are you okay? Hello?
Yes, please, sir.
All right. Okay. So now, if you are lucky and your product is approved, there is a register for all drugs that have been approved in Ghana. So FDA will enter into that register your drug and its prescribed particulars. If you say prescribed particulars of a drug, is about all the information about the drug, the active ingredient that it contains. You register drugs specifically against conditions. So the drug that you are going to register, you also state what you think the indication or indications are. So FDA will test your drug against that indication. So if your drug will have 1,000 indications and you want to register them against all the 1,000 indications, in your application, you list all those 1,000 indications. And FDA will see to it that, yes, your drug can manage all those indications. If you bring just one indication, then FDA, they will register it as part of the conditions for that indications only. That is how come if you register a drug that it is for dysmenorrhea, then on the market, you advertise that it is for candida or another condition, you will have troubles. You will face trouble because your drug wasn't registered against those conditions. Dosage regimen, everything. So all the prescribed particulars about the drug, it will be entered into the drug register. Every information about the drug will be registered. What else? The FDA will allocate the so-called FDA number. So that's the registration number. So every drug registered in Ghana do have an FDA number. So FDA will then allocate a registration number to that drug. And it is valid for maximum 5 years. So when it comes to FDA, everything about them, their licenses for manufacturing sites, registration of drug, everything that they register, normally they give you 5 years. So it means that every 5 years, the registration will expire and you have to go back and redo. So when they give you the registration, it's not lifelong. Of course, for monitoring processes. So it means that every 5 years, you go back and then they will take your drug through all those needed processes. Remember that on the market too, they can pop in and as part of their monitoring processes, check whether your drug is of top quality as presented to them during the application process. So for every 5 years, you have to go back and renew the registration. So your registration is not lifelong. You get it, it is valid for 5 years. Then they will issue to the applicant a certificate of registration when it comes to that drug. And of course, that certificate will also have the drug name, what it is meant for, and those things. So the indications, the drug name, and whatever, the FDA number, everything will be on the certificate. So this person will be the drug authorization holder or the certificate holder for that drug. It means that you have the authorization that you have registered that drug, and therefore you can bring your drug on the market. This is what goes into the registration. Class captain, any questions?
Sir,
Yeah, hello?
please, so once your drug is registered, does it automatically infer that you can advertise or you have to apply for a separate registration for advertisement?
Yes, so the advert, you have to also apply for approval because FDA will have to look at the advert. What are you going to give to the public when it comes to the information? Are you going to tell the public any different thing apart from the conditions that you came in to register the drug against? So you have to give them the content. Your drug is for dysmenorrhea. Are you going to tell them that it is for dysmenorrhea? Or you are going to add another condition that you did not register your drug for? So FDA will have to scrutinize the adverts. They are going to give information about a drug to the public. and you have to make sure that you give out the right information. So your advert will have to be what? Approved. So you don't just go there and then make your own advert without the approval by FDA. No way. We even stated this during the start of the class, that advertisement will have to be approved by FDA, except when the condition under which you are going to use the drug for is part of the conditions under the 5th schedule of the Public Health Act. That one FDA will not allow you to advertise on. Are you okay? Hello?
Yes, please. Thank you.
All right. All right. Any
Sir,
other
please, did
question,
you?
please?
Yes, please, sir. Please, the previous slide, you said that if they register it's for 5 years. Does it mean after 5 years they have to re-register?
Yes, every 5 years you go back and renew the registration. And it's not as in you have registered it before, so they are going to be flexible. They will go through the same process as if they don't even know that drug. Are you okay? They will do everything again, whatever analysis or whatever. But it depends on FDA. It depends on them. Any other question? Now, if you have,
Yes, sir.
hello?
So,
Yeah, hello?
you spoke about when registering the drug, you adding the indications to it as well. But how about the offices? Let's say while you're registering it, you didn't realize certain things, but while it was on the market, you saw some off-label uses. So in that one, do you come and re-register those off-label uses, or how do you go about it?
Yes, so you have to go back and apply to register your drug again for that indication. It has happened several times, like those phosphodiesterase inhibitors. They were meant for pulmonary hypertension. That was what originally they were registered for. On the market, they realized that it was improving erection. And therefore, they had to go back, prove to the FDA that indeed it can do that with safety. So you go back and register it against, and they will have to test for all those things. So if you find out that it has additional effects, you go back to FDA because they did not register your drug for that, your newly identified as in effect. So you go back to them, they do it. Whenever you find anything or you change anything, that anything that you did not send as part, if you want to add it, you go back and then. So it's like amendment. You go back and then you do the amendment or updates, and they will have to investigate. The FDA is there to make sure that the public, they will be safe. So anything that you claim, you need to go there and they will have to act, make sure that indeed it is true and therefore it is safe for public consumption. Any other question?
Hello, Doc.
Hello, Doc.
Can two people
Yes, sir.
register a particular product?
No. Because once the drug is registered, then it means that in Ghana, that drug has been accepted by FDA that we can use. So there is no need for another person to also come and present the same drug. And no, of course, the registration certificate will be handed over to one person. And very soon we will look at what we call parallel importation and those things, when another person will be allowed to also import that drug, though that person is not the holder of the registration. He did not register the drug. Certain conditions can bring these issues, and FDA will look at that. But on the same drug cannot be registered twice. No. Are you okay?
Yes, Doc.
All right. Any
Hello,
other
Dr.
question? Yes, sir.
Please, with regards to the other exemptions, when a drug is being used for personal use or sample that has been permitted by the FDA. So, assuming an individual has some chronic condition and then he's from outside coming to Ghana, he's a Ghanaian, he's coming back to Ghana, and the medicine that he's been prescribed has not been registered in Ghana, but it's something that he takes and it's not available in Ghana too. So does the person have to make the application through the FDA, or once he has the prescription given by the prescriber where he's coming from, he's been covered?
Yeah. So in that case, you have to go in for the application with FDA. But the good thing is that that special process will not take that long. Of course, you have to bring a proof that you are sick and you've been prescribed those medications and those things. So the FDA will work on that one very fast for you. It's not like you going through the normal process. So they will give you that import permit. So it's still an application where you'll be given the permit. It's not like you don't have any permit and you are bringing it. But that one is far, 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 far flexible and very fast so that you can get the drug and use it. Even samples, they give you import permit for samples. That one too, very fast. So the restrictions are not that as in serious as compared to when you are actually coming to register the drug for public consumption. So that's the difference.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other question? Okay, so normally or at all times, when you are going to register your drug, of course, you go there with your proposed name. It's just like when you are going to register your company with Registrar General. You go there and then pick your own name. You give a proposed name of that drug. But normally people want to be smart. Now we have, for example, Medilab, and there is a Medilab. The A is very small, being misleading. You have a Lancer chemist. Around that same place, you have another chemist with a similar name. If FDA thinks that you are trying to be smart and trying to mimic a drug on the market similar to your drug and therefore use the name to deceive the public, they may change the name for you. Just like when you go to Registrar General, you give the name of your company, and when they realize that you are trying to be smart, they will force a name for you. If you don't want it, then you go away. So if you give a name that FDA, they think that the name even constitutes safety hazard. It is misleading. It is based on an established or international non-proprietary name, or it stems from a related substance. The FDA may decide to give a name that they think will not constitute any of this, because you, the applicant, you are trying to be smart. So the name that you may send may end up not being the name of your drug. If it conflicts or it contravenes any of this, the FDA will change it. Any issues? Any issues? Now, remember that when your registration is approved, it's not that nothing can be done to the registration. If you commit any wrongdoings, they gave you the registration, they gave you the approval, they can, in a way, cancel the registration. So let's look at some conditions where your registration could be suspended or cancelled. Now, the FDA shall suspend or cancel a license issued to you if an information submitted in respect of the registration changes or it is found to have been inaccurate. So now, for example, the same thing, the indication, you came in there to register your drug for dysmenorrhea. Then they realize that on the market, you are using it for another thing. Or you came in there, you register your drug that contains diclofenac 50 milligram. You brought that samples, they analyze it. But on the market, they come and check your product and it contains 100 milligram or 25 milligram diclofenac. It means that the information have changed, and therefore they may decide to suspend the registration or cancel the registration. You can't trick FDA. They won't allow you. An applicant at any time after suspension or cancellation of registration, you are free to resubmit a new information on the product. So they are flexible. They are flexible. So based on the changes or whatever that you have done, if they cancel or suspend it, you may go back to them and resubmit a new application for them to assess and approve or not approve. A person responsible for the registration of the product who fails to inform the FDA of changes in the information submitted for its registration, you commit an offense. So if you make any changes and you decide not to inform FDA, it means that you were not truthful. You gave them false information and you could be in trouble. Now, this is very important. The FDA shall cancel the approval when it comes to a registered product if you fail to make the drug available on the market after 1 year of the registration approval. Remember, FDA are there for the public, not for you. You have come to register the drug. They approve the drug because they think that it is good and people living in Ghana will need this drug. You have the authorization. By approval, you have the marketing authorization too. But they did not approve the thing for your sake. It is for the what? The public use. So if you fail to make the drug available, then it means you are denying the people of Ghana access to that medication. And therefore, they have the right to cancel your registration. Another person may come for that registration and make the drug available. So you have 1 year after the approval to make your drug available on the market. You can't just come and then seize the drug and then just go and put it in your house. You don't want people or you don't want Ghana to enjoy the drug. You have 1 year. Once you are given the approval, 1 year, bring your drug. If not, the application will be cancelled. So note this, it is 1 year. You have the approval, bring the drug on the market. If you fail to do so, 1 year, application cancelled. Any questions? Any
Sir,
question? Class captain.
what if
Yeah.
after approval, the first year you have the drug, but let's say in the third year onward, you are not able to get it, let's say you're importing it. In that case, what do they do?
Okay, so that one, it depends. If consent comes out that, frequently we are getting shortages and those things, FDA will have to analyze the situation. It could be anything. Maybe you don't have the cash to import. If it's a genuine thing that maybe those manufacturing the drugs are not manufacturing, then fine. But it could also be that you don't have the capacity to import anymore. And in that case, we will come to that. That is when normally they will issue a para importation certificate for another person who can bring in the drug to do so, because the target is the public, not you. So if you can't do it, then they can also give a para importation certificate. You have the marketing authorization. By FDA, they have the right to also give somebody another para certificate for the person to be able to import the drug that you have registered, because they work for the public, not for any particular individual. Are you okay?
Yes,
Sir,
sir.
thank
Sir,
you.
please, after the cancellation, in case you've registered without being able to import the drug on the market and the 1 year has elapsed and they've cancelled, can you still go and reapply?
So again, that one was not stated. So of course, it will also depend on FDA. You have to go back to them after the 1 year and discuss things with them. That one, I don't know what will happen. They may or may not allow you. Maybe they may try and give it to another person. It depends. But I don't know. It's, of course, would depend on FDA. Maybe you go and explain to them why you are unable to bring the drug within or after that 1 year. If it's tangible enough, they may agree with you. But as always, they will do their own investigations and then find out the reason. There are certain situations where it's obviously not your fault, and therefore they may consider you. So once it's not stated in the act, of course, you have to go to FDA. But if you don't go there and it is cancelled, then of course, they may give the right to another person to bring in the drug. Are you okay?
Yes, please. Thank you.
All right. Now, for imported products, as part of the registration process, we said the FDA will have to analyze certain things, samples, even the documentations that comes with the drug, the quality control analysis. We have what we call dossier. So dossier is like the Bible of the drug. Anything about the drug, the ingredients, the manufacturing process, the quality control analysis, then everything, everything is in the dossier of the drug. And of course, some certificate issued by the country that you are importing from. They also have their FDA there, and the drug would have to be registered in that country. So FDA may ask for all those information, those certificates and whatever, and analyze them as well. So now, if you want to bring in a finished product into the country as part of the investigations, when you bring your samples, FDA may ask for the certificate of analysis. This certificate of analysis is issued by the quality control officer of the manufacturing company. So every batch of the product, the quality control unit will have to do analysis for quality control and issue a certificate on that batch and clear the drug that or that batch that it has passed the quality control test or otherwise. So FDA may seek for the certificate of analysis that is issued by the quality control unit of that manufacturing company, or the certificate of pharmaceutical product, just like the one that Ghana FDA will give to you. They will ask you to bring it, and that one is issued by the FDA of that country. So the FDA may ask for either of the two in addition to the dossier and the samples and any other necessary information. They will ask you for their analysis. If you are not able to provide that information, then you may not be granted approval. Now, we talked about samples, that you are allowed to bring samples. Special permit is given to you for the purpose of investigation when it comes to registrations. Now, if you bring in samples, you are now allowed to circulate samples to the general public. Samples are samples. Samples are meant to be tested for verification, whether they meet the standards or not. So don't give samples to the general public. But these individuals, you are permitted to give samples to. As part of the investigations, of course, they have patients, they deal with patients. So they may give your samples to the patients as a form of a test. They want the patients to use their drug for them to find out whether your drug is also efficacious or it has some side effect or whatever. So you can distribute samples to these professionals, pharmacists, nurses, doctors, nurses, whatever. Yes, but you can't directly give samples to individuals aside these professionals. If you do that, it's an offense. So if you want to circulate samples, your target should be those who fall under this category. Anybody outside these individuals is an offense to give drug samples to. Any queries? Any queries? Okay. Now, if you've not been issued a license to import or a permit to import a drug, obviously you are not supposed to do so. You are not supposed to do so. So whoever imports a drug should have the import permit. However, I repeat, however, the FDA may, in the public interest, note, in the public interest, not any individual's interest, authorize what we called a para importation of drugs. Para. And what is para importation? So para importation means importing a drug without authorization of the drug registration holder, the original person who did the application and FDA granted him. He has, or he is the original registration holder. But now FDA are giving another, they will give another permit to another person who is not the original holder to also import the drug from another country. And this is deemed as legitimate. And it is in the public interest. So one scenario is normally nowadays drugs like Neficat. You realize that there are intermittent shortages, and they find out that maybe yes, it's not that the company is not manufacturing. They are manufacturing, but you are not able to import enough quantities to meet the consumption of Ghanaians, and therefore you are creating intermittent shortages. Hypertension is a deadly condition. The most important risk factor when it comes to atherosclerotic cardiovascular diseases. And therefore, your inability to import this Neficat, we will not permit it to cause such a huge problem. So if they find somebody who has the capacity to import enough quantities from that same company, which is LEC in Slovenia, FDA in the public interest will give a parallel importation permit to that second person, though that person is not the holder of the original certificate, but they will give it for the person to also import from LEC so that the people of Ghana can get Neficard XL and they will not be denied from getting Neficard XL. This is what we mean by parallel importation. Class captain, are you okay? Or any clarification on this?
Sir, please, in that case, are you compensated or something?
No compensation. It is nobody's fault. You have decided not. Remember, all the agencies, regulatory agencies, they are not there for individuals. They are there for what? This public interest. So you, the individual, if you are lucky and they've granted you any permission, you are also to serve the public interest, not your personal interest. So anything that you do with your certificate, anything that you do with your approved premises, that goes against the public interest, the regulator will not allow you. The regulator will not. They are not there for individuals. They are to secure in the public interest at all times. So go and bring the drug. You said you want to bring this drug. They've given you the permission to go and bring. You're unable to bring. Ghana, they are suffering. What should they do? No. They will give it to another person to bring it. They did not deny you. They've granted you. Go and bring it, and you are not bringing it. People need the drug to survive. It's life and death issue that we are talking about. Nobody will pay you any compensation or whatever. FDA will issue a para importation permit, and another person will import it so that we get the drug in Ghana. You are unable to bring it. Please, are you okay?
Sir, please, how many other companies can be given the authorization to do parallel importation aside is it just one company?
Oh, I don't know. It depends on FDA. But all that I know is a para importation will be issued for somebody to bring it. It
Okay,
depends on FDA.
so when you're finally
Yeah, hello.
able to bring the product, can you still bring it in, even though someone else has been given that authorization?
Yes, you have the original certificate. In fact, you are the original holder. So if you get the means to bring it, fine. But the thing is, FDA will not allow the thing like intermittent shortages and those things so that the public will suffer. That is why they don't want to allow. So you can also bring it.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Hello, Dr. Babo. Is there any limitation that is stated in the law concerning the parallel importation, assuming whether you've been given some number of years, you can also import, after which you can do so?
So in this case, the para importation will also have conditions in there. So of course, again, as permitted by FDA, they will give you conditions. You, the para certificate holder. So it depends on FDA, what and what will go on between that person and then the FDA. Since it's not stated clearly here, of course, everything will depend on the FDA, whether there will be cutoff points maybe as to a certain quantity that you can import, for how long, for whatever. It depends on FDA. They will decide. They will analyze the situation and decide on what to do, the conditions that they will give or they will attach to the certificate. So everything depends on FDA. Any other question? Class captain, can we continue?
Yes, please.
All right. Now, if you are importing a drug into the country, it's not any drug that you can just go there and import, especially based on the expiry, the time from manufacturing to the expiry. You can't just bring in any bogus drug. For example, the drugs that we import into the country, the FDA, they've categorized them into two based on the expiry or the shelf life. Those that do have shorter half-life, 2 years and below. Some drugs, based on their stability, will have shorter shelf life. Others can have even up to 6 years, 10 years, because they are more stable. So when it comes to drugs that do have shelf life longer than 2 years, at the time that you are importing the drug into the country, FDA will make sure that the shelf life left shouldn't be less than 60%. So for example, if your drug has a shelf life of 5 years, from the time of manufacturing to the time of expiry, it is 5 years. So this one belongs to the group that has longer shelf life, more than 2 years. If your drug has a shelf life of 5 years, at the time that you are importing that drug into the country, 60% of 5 years is what? 3 years. The shelf life left shouldn't be less than 3 years. A drug with a shelf life of 5 years. At the time that you are importing the drug into the country, the shelf life left shouldn't be less than 3 years. If it is less than 3 years, FDA will not allow you to import that batch into the country. Remember, as you move closer to the expiry, the deterioration process begins. Quality, safety, efficacy may be compromised. Of course, you know how you determine expiry. You have T90 and whatever. So by the time you get to the expiry, then it means the active ingredients, by all means, no matter how well you store the drug, would have deteriorated, and what you have in there is less than 90% of it. And the safety efficacy cannot be guaranteed. Same thing FDA, they are applying here. If the shelf life left is less than 3 years, for a drug with a shelf life of 5 years, that is 60%. You are not going to import that drug. For those with shorter half-lives, that is 2 years or below, they will ensure that by the time you are importing that drug into the country, the shelf life left is at least 80%. So 80% of 2 years, if it is less than that, you are not bringing that batch into the country. Class captain, are we okay?
Yes, please.
All right. Any other question? Any other? Okay. So now, your manufacturing premises, we are talking about FDA. So we are not talking about Pharmacy Council, what their premises. This is premises for FDA.
Hello, sir. Please, I
Yeah,
lost
hello.
my break. Please, can you take the 60%? It is 60.
You need to check your network. Are you the same person who asked whether you can hear me or not?
Yes, please.
Yes, please check your network. Check it. Maybe you position yourself well. We are saying that with FDA, drugs have been classified into two according to shelf life. We have those with shelf life 2 years and below, and those with shelf life longer than 2 years. For those with shelf life, if I say shelf life, I hope you understand.
Yes, please.
All right. So those with shelf life longer than 2 years, say a drug has a shelf life of 10 years. By the time that you are importing such a drug into the country, FDA will make sure that that batch should not have the remaining shelf life being lower than 60%. So 60% of 10 years is 6 years. So for a drug with 10 years shelf life, if you want to import that drug into the country, the remaining shelf life should be at least 6 years or more. If that drug with shelf life of 10 years has the remaining one being 5 years, for example, it means that it is 50% of the 10 years. You will not be allowed to bring this drug to Ghana. Those 2 years and below, by the time that you are bringing that drug, the remaining shelf life should be at least 80%. If it is less than 80%, you are not going to import that drug into the country. So that's the additional restrictions on drug importation based on the shelf life. Please, are you okay?
Sir, this is it 80 or 60%?
60% for those with shelf life longer than 2 years. 80% for those with shelf life 2 years or below. Can you see the 80% here?
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
All right. So now the premises itself. If you are a person, you should never is a sha, manufacture any drug for sale, selling, or supply or storage. You shouldn't do that under the Part 7, except that premises has been registered and approved for that purpose, either for manufacturing, for sale, storage. So it means that FDA, they also even approve premises for storage, for manufacturing. You can't utilize such premises unless that premises has been approved for that purpose. An application, of course, for the registration or its renewal will be directed to FDA, and FDA, as always, will give you the specifications in the prescribed form. And as always, you pay the application fee. Here again, for premises, it will be valid for a period of not more than 5 years. So with FDA, everything about their approvals, 5 years, either the drug, the premises, or whatever, every 5 years, you have to go and renew the approval. If you change any registered premises, this one, Pharmacy Council will also tell you, because they take the address and everything as part of the documentation. So should in case you make any change, because that new place that you are going, you also have to come and inspect whether it meets their standards. So if you make any change when it comes to a registered premises, you shall notify the authority, because where you are going, they've not approved that premises for manufacturing or for sales or for storage. So you need to inform them for them to do the necessary investigations and register that new area or that new premises. Any questions? So FDA, all in all, they issue or they approve the following. Pharmacy Council, you remember, they do retail license, wholesale license, retail wholesale, pharmacies within clinics and hospitals, and then manufacturing wholesale. These are the premises licensed by Pharmacy Council. If you come to FDA, these are the licenses that they also issue. Of course, manufacturing premises, storage facilities. So if you go to Tema and all those places around Tema, see that there are some warehouses that people import drugs and maybe they store them in those warehouses. FDA will have to approve that warehouse. If you are going to store any item or product under their control, drugs, food, medical devices, herbal medicinal products, cosmetics, anything that falls under them, they will have to what? Register that premises, whether it is for manufacturing, storage, import or export of any of the products under them. So if you want to export your drugs or import drugs, food, whatever, you have to get a license, either import or export license from FDA. And then any other license or permit that will be determined by authority, provided it falls under their jurisdiction. You have to go apply for them to give you such license. But obviously, these three, you have to know that they all fall under. So if you have a question on manufacturing premises, who issue license for it, don't go and choose Pharmacy Council. Note that manufacturing premises, Pharmacy Council don't have any control. And therefore, they don't even go there for inspection. It is FDA. Storage facilities, it is FDA. Import and export, it is FDA. If you are talking about retail pharmacy, wholesale pharmacy, retail, wholesale, pharmacies within clinics and hospitals, manufacturing, wholesale, don't let that one deceive you because you have manufacturing in there. Manufacturing, wholesale, that one is for Pharmacy Council. Manufacturing wholesale doesn't mean that the person has a registered manufacturing premises. No. The last time I said manufacturing wholesale, typically those that will contract some manufacturing companies elsewhere outside Ghana for them to produce their brands. They import those brands in Ghana in containers and they supply it to wholesalers for wholesalers to also supply it to retailers. If you hold that certificate, it is called manufacturing wholesale. An application for a license or permit under the Part 7 shall be made to the FDA and of course should be accompanied with the prescribed fee. It is valid for 5 years. Class Captain, any queries on this? So note the permit or the license issued by FDA. Note the licenses issued by Pharmacy Council. Don't mix them up. Any queries?
No, please.
Class Captain. All right. Now, closure of premises and safe disposal of unwholesome regulated products. Here we are talking about food substances. The FDA, they shall order the closure of any premises where any of the articles under their control are either manufactured, stored, prepared, or sold. If the FDA, they have reasons to believe that any of those articles are exposed to the risk of contamination, maybe you are storing or preparing them under insanitary conditions, or deterioration, and the authority may make a further order appropriate in the circumstances. So once they have a very good reason to believe that any product under their control is likely going to be contaminated or deteriorated, because maybe the premises that they've approved, there are some insanitary stuff or something very bad going on there, they may order the closure of such premises. Now, even if you have a product, for example, you have some pharmaceutical drugs that have expired and you want to throw them away, you are not allowed to throw them by yourself. Maybe you just give it to some bolaman for the person to throw them away. No. Expired products, you don't do that. FDA will have to supervise the disposal of such products. Expired product is just an example. It's an example of an unwholesome product. It has expired, so you can't use it for its purpose. You want to throw them, you want to dispose them, you can't do them without informing the FDA. And when they come, they may charge you a fee for coming to supervise the disposal of your expired product. So double loss. Your drugs have expired, you've lost. FDA coming to supervise the disposal, you also have to pay them. So that is how come people, they don't want to pay FDA, so secretly they just throw it back. When you are caught, it's a crime because they only have the technical know-how. These drugs have expired. You are just throwing them. How? Is it safe to just throw them away? Go and mix it with normal rubbish that people have thrown away. Where are they going to dispose that expired drug? Is not going to create problems to the health of the public. That is why FDA will have to be there and supervise the disposal. So yes, it's a double loss, but that is the law. You have to go by that. So a person shall not dispose of an unwholesome regulated product without the supervision of the FDA. If you do that, it's a crime. You have contravened this provision, and you shall pay a fine of not more than 5,000 penalty units. Remember, one penalty unit is 12 Ghana. So if you do that and they catch you, you just multiply 5,000 by 12, then you go and pay for throwing your unwholesome product away without the supervision of FDA. Any queries, class captain?
No, please.
All right. Now, I don't know whether you've reached where the pharmacy council, they can go around and then do their monitoring, inspections. They do that with inspecting pharmacists. The FDA too, of course, they monitor. Just that the work is too much on them. So at times they can monitor through other state agencies, like the police or whatever, immigration. But they also do their personal monitoring. So an authorized officer from the FDA, of course, may, at reasonable hour, for the proper performance of the function of Part 7, enter any premises where the officer believes that any article under the Part 7 controlled by FDA, here we are talking about drugs and the others, applied, is prepared, preserved, packed, stored, or conveyed. And of course, when they go there, they can examine the article and take samples and examine anything that the officer believes it is used or is capable of being used for either the preparation, preservation, packaging, storing, or conveying that particular article. So they can enter when they have reasonable cause to believe that maybe something wrong is about to be done or is ongoing or it has been done. They can come and then pick samples. Even any information about the drug they can pick and then, of course, send it to the FDA for analysis. They can even open and examine a receptacle or a package which the officer believes contains an article to which it is controlled under the FDA. They can also examine the books, document, or any other records found in a place mentioned above. So any of those premises, either manufacturing or storage facilities or whatever, they can examine your document, which the officer believes that it contains any information relevant, as I said. They can also seize and detain for a period that the officer considers necessary any article under the control of FDA by means of or in relation to which it is believed a provision of this part has been contravened. So if you do any wrong thing there, they can also seize that product, especially when it goes against their specifications. A drug hasn't been registered and it is there, they can seize it. A drug has expired. They have reasons to believe that the drug has been adulterated and it is there with you, whether in your premises, storage facility, whatever. It is to secure the safety of the public, and they can seize that product. All right, any queries? But in doing this, that authorized officer will have to provide identification document should in case the owner of the facility asks him or her. So you say you claim that you are an officer from FDA. What shows that you are from FDA? So in doing this act, if that person is asked for proper identification, the officer will have to also show. So maybe some ID card or any other document that will prove that indeed the officer is from FDA, because we have tracers all out there who can come in and act as if they are from FDA. But they need that drug, they will just come and act as one and seize the drug. Not that they are seizing it. Imposters, they are taking the drug away. So you have to provide an identity card. Where the owner or any reasonable person in occupation of that premises, be it a storage facility, manufacturing facility, or whatever, who is present within that premises, refuses to open either a container or the premises for the officer. The officer, by a warrant, so the officer may go to a court and secure a warrant. And by force, with the warrant, they can break through your premises and then open the door against your wish with a warrant, because you are doing something bad there. They want to come in and inspect. You are saying no. Okay, they will go to the court, secure a warrant, come there with the police or whatever task force and break through. There is nothing that you can do. If you want to do anything, you can't do anything. Or if that person makes any attempt to prevent the officers by going in, even by physical, as in means, you just block them, or you try to even induce them, bribe, any form that will prevent the officers from doing their work, it's against this provision and it is considered as an offense or a crime. So when they come, whether you bribe them, you make an attempt to bribe them, physically prevent them from going in and those things, it is considered as a crime. So don't do that. Inducement, paying bribes, physically preventing them. Any form, if any form, either in kind or cash, it is against the law and you may be in trouble. Now, the FDA do have the authority to prosecute people. So if you do anything that goes against the FDA, you should know that the FDA, they can prosecute you. So if you contravene any provision in the Part 7, the FDA can prosecute you based on Section 56 of the Criminal and Other Offences Act, 1960, Act 30. So FDA may decide to prosecute offenders or may not decide. In law court, prosecute in law courts. Any queries? Now, one interesting thing is that a license issued by FDA can be cancelled by a proper court of competent jurisdiction in Ghana. So let's say if you have any case concerning your premises and maybe it goes to the law court, the judge there can decide to cancel the registration issued to you by FDA. The only thing that the court will have to do is that the registrar of the court within 14 days should notify FDA of that cancellation for the FDA to also effect it in their document. So if you are convicted of any crime or whatever, and as part of the punishment, they decide to cancel a certificate issued by FDA, the court has the authority to do so. The only thing that the court will have to do is to inform the FDA within 14 days of that conviction, so that the FDA will also have to make the necessary. Class captain, any questions? What says the time?
It is 10:50.
Okay, then we can continue. At least we have.
Sir,
Yeah, hello.
sir, please, in the case where maybe you are operating a premises and the FDA comes in, they see certain things that are not right, and they are rather asking you to pay something to them and you are not willing. Is there a way for you to report them or something?
Of course, because those who come there are not like the authority themselves. There will be officers of the authority, or maybe officers from any state agency acting on behalf of FDA. So if they are also demanding, make sure that you get approved though. You can also report them to FDA that yes, they were seeking for a bribe and you decided not to pay them and blah 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 blah. Yes, the authority is there. Those that will come is not there. Remember, you have the 11 members. They are there. All those that will come and be doing those monitoring, they are officers of the authority. So yes, they can also do what you are saying. You can also, with evidence, the game is played with evidence. So with evidence, you can also report them to FDA. So you versus the officers, then the FDA will have to decide. Please, are you okay?
Yes, please. Thank you.
All right. Any other question? Class captain, let me know when it is 12. Or if you are tired, we can close it here, then continue next week. If not, we can continue. In fact, this was the target though, but it looks like we've been able to finish early. But if you are okay, let's continue. Class captain and the class, should we continue?
Yes, please.
No.
Next week.
Okay, all right. So now, that will bring us to the end of all the key things that we should read under the part 7. I teased out the key information from the part 7. It's a very bulky document. At least with this, you are okay to go. Add the interpretations. Make sure that you know about the interpretations. For example, you go to the interpretations of the part 7. They have defined or interpreted what they mean by a drug, about 3 different meanings. If you are asked what is a drug, you make sure that you state all the 3 as stated in the interpretations. So, for example, the first interpretation of a drug is any drug that is mentioned in a publication under Schedule 4. So, Schedule 4 contains the official books. Any substance that is mentioned in any of those official books is deemed to be a drug. That is one of the interpretations of what drugs are. Food supplements are also considered as drugs. So that is another definition of what a drug is. Then the remaining 2 is some lengthy interpretation, a substance or a mixture of substance that is intended for prevention, mitigation, cure, treatment of a condition or an organ dysfunction in either animals or human beings. Please get all the different meanings of what a drug is and make sure that when you are asked, you don't just state one. Because depending on what you left out, it will mean that certain things are not drugs, meanwhile they are drugs. So make sure that you know. Premises has been interpreted there, even a label on drugs, they've done the interpretations, homeopathic medicines, herbal medicines. Please make sure. You can get a full question only about interpretation, where they ask you to write short notes about the following. Then you see a drug, premises, label, homeopathic medicines. If you know, you just within 10 minutes, you are done. So don't joke with the interpretations, because this is law. If you write it from your head, you may change the interpretation, then that will go against you. Same applies to pharmacy council. At the end of the act, the part 4, please make sure that you familiarize yourself with the interpretations. Restricted medicines, over-the-counter medicines, who a practitioner is, who a registered pharmacist is, who a superintendent pharmacist is, who and who constitute the support staff. Whatever, please make sure that you know this. If you can't chew it, just make sure that you can paraphrase and maintain the core meaning. Don't joke with the interpretations. All right. Okay, so let's continue. Now, we said that there is one particular committee
Sir,
that is statutory. Yeah, hello.
yeah, please, I have a question. I don't think I joined earlier, but in answering a question like this, like when you have to state the interpretation of what a drug is, how do you start before you give your answers or the answers that you know? What is like the opening statements before you continue?
So normally they won't ask you to state the interpretation. They will ask you to write short notes.
Okay.
Short notes about the following. So short notes, the most important thing is the statement under the interpretation section. That's what they are looking for. You can write so many things, blah, 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 blah. If they don't see those key things as stated under the interpretations, you are not getting the mark.
Okay.
So it's better you get what is written under the interpretations and then give it to them.
Okay.
Rather than you trying to use your own ideas to describe who a registered pharmacist is and blah, 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 blah. You see, they don't have time to mark. So your answers should be precise and concise. If you go by what is in the act, you'll be doing precise and concise work. You'll not be writing short notes and you are doing half a page for one, for who a pharmacist is. Is that short notes?
No.
So make sure that you get the interpretations. It's not necessary for you to get the words dito, but some keywords in there, you can't avoid them. You have to bring them and then make sure that you maintain the meaning. Short answers, keeping the meanings without maybe. If you're able to chew too, then fine, the better. If you're able to take the thing and give it to them, bam, and the better. Even with that, once you read the interpretation over and over again, you realize that it sticks with you. And you go there, you can remember and then just give it to them. Because you seem to understand the keywords in the end. Those conjunctions and those things that you are using to link the keywords there, you always remember. So remember, I remember during my time, I read the Pharmacy Act about 12 times. I always state this about 12 times. And there was one statement when the dangerous drug book must be completed. It was on my 8th reading that I realized that it is an action that you do even before you serve a dangerous drug or a restricted medicine. Because in the hospital, at times, you see the bosses feeling it when they're about to make a requisition for another, as in order. I did not know that it was an action that you have to do before. Even if it wasn't, as in I was going to write it and not after, I would put it at during. But the question was asking that we should state the actions prior to dispensing or during our dispensing. The actions that we will do, A, before dispensing, B, during dispensing, C, after dispensing. So A, B, C, it means that they expect you to, as in, place those actions at where they want them. So if you place an action at where it is not done, then it is wrong. And so many of us wrote it either after or during, but it was an action before. So as for the act, you just need to read it over and over and over. Then you realize that it will be part of you. It will be like you have chewed everything and you just go and then give it to them. Those who can't commit into memory, you read, you understand as we discuss here, you paraphrase, but not changing the core meaning of those statements. Please, are we okay? Class captain.
Say,
Are you there? Yeah, hello.
sir, please, I need a clarification, but not on this particular topic. Sir, please, about the ex-official members, are they 4 or 5?
Yeah, so technically, if based on the meaning of ex officio, if you are using the current as in law, then you would argue that then the only remaining ex officio will only be even the registrar. But even since 2013 that the new act came in, they are still maintaining the 4. Because all the MCQs that have dropped in there on the numbers, if you choose anything other than 4, they mark you down. So still keep it as if you are using the old act. It is 4 per the MCQs that have dropped in since 2013 up to date. And they ask for the ex officio, it is still 4. Just that the new act did not, as in, state those who are actually coming in with ex officio, unlike the old act that stated. So the old act, you have the rep from training institution, they were specific, because during those days, it was only KNUST that was training pharmacists. So they will state that person, the dean of the faculty of pharmacy, KNUST. So once you are appointed the dean of faculty of pharmacy in the old act, you automatically become a member of the pharmacy council. Then they will state a rep from the Ministry of Health. It was a direct statement, the director for pharmaceutical services. Currently, they don't state it like that. They say a person or a rep from the Ministry of Health who is not below the rank of what? Director. So somebody can argue that since they did not mention anybody's name, then it could be any director. Maybe director of finance could even be asked to come onto the board. Then the rep or the person chosen by a registered pharmacist. In the old act, they will state that the president of the PSGH, Pharmaceutical Society of Ghana. In the new act, they only say that registered pharmacist elected by registered pharmacist. So they did not mention the name of PSGH boss. So considering this, one will argue that then the true, based on the new act, the true ex officio person will be only the registrar. Is the only person that when the president appoints, based on Article 195, becomes an automatic member. But from the MCQs up to date, it shows that they are still keeping the 4 positions. So it means that, and if you check the list, they still have the KNUST Dean, the Director of Pharmaceutical Services, Registrar, and the PSGH boss. So it means that they are still keeping the 4. So keep the 4. Though you can make your argument during orals. When you are asked about your concern about the interpretations or whatever, you can argue when you are done and they ask you what you want to as in add. But still keep the 4 because per the MCQs, it is 4 that when you choose the market. Are you okay?
Okay, sir. Thank you.
All right. Any other question? Class
Sir,
captain. Yeah, hello.
yeah, please. I don't know if I've heard wrong, but from our last class, Dr. Ishak also said 5. So I don't know. I'm confused.
So which ones? Which ones are you, as in which additional one are you adding to make it 5?
From what I
So
can
who and
recall,
who?
he said the president, the representative of the institution, the director of the director, the
Which president?
representative.
Take your time. Take your time. Which president?
The president of PSGH,
Mm-hmm.
the representative from the institution, the
Which
director,
institution?
as in the schools.
So you see what I'm realizing now. If you go and present your answers like this, you'll be in trouble. Make sure that you make your statement and conclude. Okay, so from the schools, what else? PSGH president, what else?
You also mentioned the director of the Ministry of
Yes,
Health,
yeah.
then the representative from the Attorney General, then the
Oh,
registrar of mass.
nah. What I know is the registrar. I don't know no. What I know is the registrar, the dean from the old act. And that is what they are maintaining. So you can get the old act and confirm the 1994 act and confirm. So the dean, the PSDH president, the registrar, and the rep from the director, as in the director of pharmaceutical services. So let's check from the old, because it looks like that is what they are maintaining. So please check. Do you have the old act 1994? Hello?
Yes.
So I also consult Dr. Ishak. Maybe he has an additional information that currently is making the rep from the Attorney General become part of the ex officio. But you also confirm. Are you okay?
Yes, please. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Any other questions? Class captain. So should we continue?
Yes, please. We've agreed to end
All
at
right.
11:30.
11:30.
Yes, please.
All right. Okay. So let me know when it's 11:30. So now we said the FDA do have several committees, but one of them at least is statutory. That is, it is mentioned in the act and therefore it is backed by law. And I said we are going to discuss that committee when it comes to the part 8. So under the part 8, it talks about clinical trials, and the committee that handles clinical trials on behalf of FDA, so they work under the FDA, is the Clinical Trials Technical Advisory Committee. The Clinical Trials Technical Advisory Committee. When we're looking at the various committees under FDA, we mentioned them. So now, this committee, of course, is established under the FDA. So they work or they operate under the FDA. Their main object is to provide the FDA with ongoing and timely medical, not only medical, but also scientific advice on current and emerging issues relating to clinical trials. So when it comes to ongoing and timely medical and scientific advice on current and emerging issues that relates to clinical trials, it is this committee that will handle that on behalf of FDA and report to FDA. Now, what are then the functions of this committee? Because remember, it is always about the functions that when you execute, you achieve your objects. So to be able to achieve this object, this committee do have several functions, and all of them are about clinical trials. Everything that they do is about clinical trials. So now let's look at their functions. This committee, they are to regularly review and advise the FDA on the clinical trial system in Ghana and make recommendations regarding its maintenance and improvement. This is clear. So they advise the FDA when it comes to clinical trial system in the country. Not only that, but they also make recommendations as to how they will maintain and improve the standards when it comes to clinical trial system in Ghana. They perform causality assessment and issue report on ADRs or ADs in relation to clinical trials. That's Captain. What is causality assessment? If we say you are to perform or conduct causality, FDA, you've seen adverse events in there. So how do you explain causality assessment? Ask Captain.
Hello, sir.
Causality. What is the meaning of causality here?
If you want to evaluate an association between a drug and then the drug reaction.
Perfect. Perfect. So it is this committee who do have the technical know-how to establish a link between an adverse drug event an adverse drug reaction, and a drug. Class captain, is there any difference between adverse drug event and adverse drug reaction and side effect? These are different. These are the safety signals. Do you have any differences between them? Side effects, adverse drug reaction, adverse drug event. We normally use them interchangeably, but they are not the same. They are different safety signals. And class captain, if I mention you, it doesn't mean that it's always about you. You know this rule.
Yes, please.
Yes, so you can call somebody. So somebody should explain adverse drug event, another person adverse drug reaction, another person side effect. They are not the same. We need to understand, but they are all part of safety signals. They even have serious adverse drug events or adverse drug reactions. Let me look at class captain. Do you know the ladies who have been asking questions? Let me ask them one question. They always ask questions. So payback time.
Abuna
Let
Maunyan
them.
or Mavis Akpa, Mavis MFA.
They are the two ladies, eh?
Yes, please.
Okay, I see. So MFA and Abuna, you can take any of the three: adverse drug event, adverse drug reaction, side effect. You want to clarify them.
So side effect is any undesirable
Hello.
that results from using.
Is this
Yeah, hello,
is this
sir.
Abuna or MFA?
Tabna.
Abuna, come again. Your line was breaking.
Okay, yeah, I was saying that side effect is any undesirable effects from a drug while using it for any medical treatment.
So you are sure that every side effect is undesirable? That's what you are telling us. But you are aware that we can even take advantage of certain side effects. So it means that
Yes.
side effect is not always undesirable. So undesirable means it's always negative. You get it. But the fact that
Yes,
we
sir.
at times take advantage of certain side effects, it is not what always undesirable, but rather unexpected. You don't expect that one. That's not why you are using the drug. So technically, it is an unexpected outcome or effect of the drug. And that one is related to the pharmacology of the drug. So based on the mechanism of action of the drug, that thing will happen whenever you use that drug. But it is not what you expect. You don't expect that thing. But based on the pharmacology, it will happen. So in defining side effects, you need to bring in the fact that it is related to the pharmacology of the drug and is an unexpected. It could be desirable or undesirable depending on what you want to use the drug for. So somebody wanting to abort pregnancy with misoprostol, that becomes the desirable effect. Somebody using it for cytoprotection, somebody on long-term NSAIDs using misoprostol for cytoprotection, a pregnant person, and the person gets abortion, that becomes undesirable. But when the person wants to abort or induce labor, it becomes desirable. So it's not always, side effect is not always about undesirable effect. Okay, very good. The other two, adverse drug event and adverse drug reaction. Emifa, are you there?
Yes, please. Said
So pick one.
among the adverse drug event
Event.
is
Okay. Let's look at the event.
It's an unfavorable and unintended response to the drug, whether or not it's related to the product. Don't know if I'm correct.
Hmm. Hmm. We need to modify this one. So the event, as you said, is unintended and unfavorable. So that one is undesirable. But the effect happens around the time that you are using the drug. But you can't necessarily link this problem to the drug. So you are using a drug, around that time, you get an undesirable effect, nauseous, negative. But you can't necessarily relate this problem to the drug. If it happens this way, then it is an event, adverse drug event. Please, are you okay?
Yes, please.
So the other one, when the actual drug, it is clear we are implicating the drug. Yes, this undesirable effect is nauseous, and it is as a result of the drug confirmed. That becomes adverse drug reaction. But at the time that you cannot, it's like there is a doubt. Is it because of the drug or not the drug? It's happening at the time that we are using the drug, then it becomes an event. But if we are sure, confirmed that yes, this reaction, this nauseous problem, this undesirable response is happening because of a drug product, even when you use it at normal doses that we use in human beings or animals, especially. If you take an overdose, then you can't blame the drug as the drug giving you adverse drug reaction because you yourself, you have taken an overdose. But at normal doses, and you still get the undesirable effect, and that one you can implicate the drug. It is a reaction. If you are not sure, it's just happening around the time that you are using the drug, but you can't necessarily link it to the drug, then it becomes an event. If any unexpected or unintended, unintended would be a proper term, action occurs when you are using a drug and it is related to the pharmacology of the drug. For example, you are taking atropine and you get dry mouth. Atropine as an antimuscarinic obviously will give you dry mouth. This is a side effect. It is related to the mechanism of action, the pharmacology. Class captain, are you okay?
Yes, please.
All right, so let's continue with the functions. They also make recommendations to the authority regarding the actions the authority may take to resolve issues or concerns related to the conduct of clinical trials, including the need to halt or suspend the clinical trial. So you are performing your clinical trials. This committee, they will monitor you from the start to the finish. And they gather their information. And for example, if maybe the adverse drug reactions occurring during the clinical trials is too much, it is causing harm to the participants, it is this committee, since they are those in charge, that will make recommendation to the authority that no, this investigational drug is causing too much harm. So authority, please, let's suspend them or let's just cancel the clinical trials. It is on them to do that. They also recommend publication of case reports as well as its risks or benefit evaluations in medical and scientific journals with prior consent of the sponsor. So let's say if you are doing clinical trials and you get some case reports, it is this committee that recommend how it is published, where it is even published. Though they will get the approval from the sponsor of that clinical trials. So the team or the committee will do that. When you're about to perform any clinical trials, and for example, you don't have any knowledge about when it comes to the way you detect adverse drug reactions and how to report them, this same committee will recommend educational programs and topics for the investigators aim at enhancing reporting of adverse effects or events and improving compliance with good clinical practice, as recommended by the International Conference on Harmonization Guidelines and Helsinki Declaration. So they will direct you, they look at your CV, the investigators, they realize that you don't have as in any knowledge, or when it comes to adverse drug reaction detection and reporting, you are not there. Before you start, they will recommend educational programs for you to undertake. Although they will inform the authority that this is the shortcoming. So, of course, you should go through this program before you start. Because as part of the target of clinical trials, trying to identify adverse drug reaction is one of them. Efficacy is one of them. Toxicity is one of them. Dosage is one of them. So if you are not able to identify, how do you report? So they will make sure that you get that knowledge as part of the things that you need to successfully perform clinical trials. It is on them. They advise the authority periodically on the review of guidelines for clinical trials and good clinical practice issued by the authority. This is obvious. They also advise the authority on clinical endpoints in the review of protocols submitted to the authority. So every clinical trials, every research do have endpoints. We have primary endpoint and secondary endpoint. So the endpoint that you have in your protocol, let's say your endpoint is the duration of stay in the hospital or mortality or survival rate. They will look at your protocol and then analyze and check if those endpoints that you stated per your protocol, is it the appropriate endpoint that you should be targeting? If it's okay, then they recommend to the authority that it's okay. If it's not okay, then they will make recommendations that, oh no, the endpoint shouldn't be maybe survivor, or it shouldn't be this. It should be maybe length of hospital stay. It should be maybe efficacy or whatever. They have the technical know-how and they will do those recommendations to the authority. They also recommend to the authority approval of clinical trials. So final, whether the authority should approve a clinical trial or not, it is the committee that will recommend to the FDA. They also evaluate final reports of clinical trials that have been approved. So when you are done with your clinical trials, the report that you submit, they will have to review it. They evaluate, and then because they are there with you all the time, you can't lie to them, so they will review it. They advise the authority on matters relating to inspections conducted by the authority on good clinical practice and good laboratory practice. So as I said, they monitor every clinical trial from start to finish. So even during the phase 0, which is the preclinical phase, preclinical trial phase, that is where you do lab work. You try to do in vitro and in vivo work in animals to ascertain safety and the appropriate dosage before you bring it on human beings. That is the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 proper. Over there, they will make sure that even in the labs, though you are dealing with animals, animals too do have rights nowadays. You observe the principles of good laboratory practice. If they approve this and you begin the clinical trials proper, that is when you are going to use human beings. They also have to make sure that you observe the principles of good clinical practice. They will have to advise the authority on all this to make sure that they secure the safety of the participants. The final one is to perform any other function at all that are ancillary to the attainment of their object. So apart from all those functions that you've seen up there, any other thing at all that if they execute, it will help them to achieve their object when it comes to clinical trials, they are allowed to perform. So quickly, let's look at the composition. We have 13 members in this committee. FDA, class captain, how many do we have? Class captain.
Hello, sir. Yes,
FDA
please.
constitutes How many members? The membership of the
11.
FDA.
11, please.
Pharmacy Council, HIFA. Now,
Pharmacy
these
Council.
are bonus questions. When it comes, please, 2 seconds, 1 second, you are done shading. 33 seconds per question. Save time for the lengthy ones. You can see that some of the members are in green text. I intentionally did that because those are the positions that pharmacists can easily, based on our qualification, we can easily be called onto these committees. So, for example, a clinical pharmacologist. A pharmacist can specialize and then become a clinical pharmacologist. A pharmacist who holds either MPhil or PhD in clinical pharmacology can then be called to become a member of the board of the committee. So a clinical pharmacologist, a social scientist, so the social people, of course, you are going to deal with participants, human beings. So you need to know the social aspects. Then an internal medicine practitioner. Remember, you are going to do in clinical trials, good clinical practice. So you need these doctors to be part. Another green one, a clinical pharmacist. Remember, a clinical pharmacist is different from a clinical pharmacologist. So here too, a pharmacist could be called, a clinical pharmacist could be called. Then an epidemiologist. Even with this one, if a pharmacist specializes in epidemiology, public health, you do public health as your master's or PhD and you specialize in epidemiology. We have so many pharmacists who have read public health. So you could also occupy. Then a pharmacologist, of course, a pharmacologist. Once you have a pharmacologist, you have a toxicologist. So in the Department of Pharmacology, KNUST, you realize that some of the lecturers are pharmacologists, some of them are toxicologists. Class captain, do you know that? You've been with them for 6 years. Class captain.
Hello, sir.
Are you aware that in the Department of Pharmacology, we have pharmacologists and toxicologists?
Yes, please.
You are from KNUST?
No, please.
Oh, okay.
From Central University.
Anybody on the platform from KNUST? Hello?
Otiwa, Sandra, sorry.
Sandra, are you aware of this? So the department name doesn't mention or it doesn't state toxicology. It's not Department of Pharmacology, and you should always hear pharmacology, but you have some in there who are toxicologists and others who are pharmacologists. Otiwa,
Dr. Popo.
are you aware of this?
Yes, please, about where?
So whom do you know, a toxicologist?
Please hold on.
Prof. KBM is one of them. Prof. Ansan is one of them.
Dr. KB. I used to use initials, so I don't remember the name. But KB
Yeah, so Kwesi Boedu Mensah, then Prof. Ansan, Prof. Ansan. They are toxicologists. Prof. Abochi and the rest. They are pharmacologists. Prof. Timba, Prof. Abuchi, Prof. Amani Dankwa, those ones. All right, so just note that pharmacists too could be a toxicologist and therefore could be part of this committee. Then a biostatistician, of course, you are going to analyze data. I'm going to analyze data. So a biostatistician should be part. As part of the medical guys, you have pediatrician, geriatricians, all of these guys may be there. You have a surgeon in there, a clinical pathologist. These are all medical officers. If any adverse drug reaction occurs and there is any issues concerning organ failure or something, A pathologist will have to be there to analyze. You may be dealing with herbals, so a medical herbalist will have to be there. If anything concerns surgery, maybe the trial is on some medical device, some robotic machine that is used in performing surgery, remember the surgeon is there. So hardcore guys with high level of knowledge, these are the guys that will be monitoring clinical trials from the start to the finish, the end. Specialists in different fields coming together to work. So interprofessional collaborative practice will be on point. They will bring their expertise together and they'll be able to identify all the shortcomings and the good things and make the proper recommendations to the FDA for them to act. Among them, they will pick one person to be their head. So the chairperson, so this one, FDA doesn't appoint one person to be head. Among the 13 members, they themselves will pick one person to be the chairperson. That's Captain. What is the time?
Yes, please, it's 11:30.
All right. So,
slide, so I'll just alert you.
all right. So, perfect. Slide 50. So, next week when we meet, we'll continue from 51. Then, obviously, we are going to end. Next week, the target is to finish with this. So, next week, prepare yourself. We start from slide 51, and I think we have about 80 something slides or so. We should be able to finish. These are not packed stuff. The pack sections, we are done with them. These are things that you know already. We are just going to refresh ourselves. And then, so I think it's 80 something. Yeah. So we have about 35 slides to go. Next week, God willing, we'll be able to finish. Any questions before we close?
Yeah, boss. Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Boss, please, I wanted to know when I joined, you were talking about something about drug, some definition, and you were giving some details. I didn't get it. I wanted you to come again. Could you please help me by coming again?
Okay, so I was talking about when you are asked about writing short notes on certain, but normally people will read the. Hello, please, can you hear me?
Yeah, please.
People will read the act itself and forget about the interpretations. They won't go in there and read. But I was telling you that you could have a whole question on interpretation, but indirectly they will ask you to write short notes about a certain list. So you see a full question and it's all about write short notes about the following: a pharmacist, a registered pharmacist, a superintendent pharmacist, a practitioner, pharmaceutical support staff, over-the-counter medicines, a label, a drug, whatever. Short notes, meaning they want you to be precise and concise. All that they are telling you or asking you is to bring the interpretations. If you don't know the interpretations, then you'll be writing plenty, which is not going to fetch you any marks. Nobody has time to be reading through all this. So please familiarize yourself with the interpretations. I cited drugs because if you go into the Public Health Act, the interpretation section, you realize that for drugs alone, what a drug is, they've given 3 different interpretations under drugs. And when you are asked to mention or define what a drug is, as in the law section, not the clinical, if they ask you to define what a drug is under the clinical section, you are giving the clinical definition of a drug. If they ask you about the interpretation under the law section, you are giving the interpretation on drugs. And over there, you see 3 different interpretations, and you have to provide all the 3. Because if you leave out one of them, then it means that what will qualify a certain item to become a drug, you have removed that one. It means that item is not a drug because you did not capture its definition in there. Meanwhile, it is considered as a drug. So if you go in there, you will see an interpretation like food supplement. All food supplements are considered as drugs. Another interpretation is any substance that is mentioned in the publication listed under the Schedule 4. And you know the Schedule 4 publications. The one who asked the question. Do you know the publications under the Schedule 4 of the Public Health Act?
I've forgotten a bit, but I'll go back and look at it.
Yes, so the British Pharmacopoeia, International Pharmacopoeia, Extra Pharmacopoeia, United States Pharmacopoeia, standards and recommendations from the Codex Alimentarius Commission, or any other publication or work adapted by FDA. So 6 official books. If any substance is mentioned in any of these publications, that substance qualifies to be a drug. That is one interpretation of what a drug is. Then the next one is the true definition, almost like the clinical definition. So any substance or a mixture of substance that is used to detect, prevent, mitigate, cure condition or any organ dysfunction in animals or human beings. This is also another way of defining or interpreting what a drug is. So technically, you have to present all these 3 before you get the full marks on what a drug is. They can ask you about homeopathic medicines, what a label is, what a premises is, whatever. So don't joke with the interpretations. Take them serious, just as you take the main body of the act serious. Please, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay. Thank you.
All right. All right. Any other question? Any other class captain? Any announcement? Anything concerning your next class or something?
I would send the information to the group. So I think that's it for today.
All right. Okay. So let's prepare ourselves for next week, God willing. The target is to finish this, then it will be left with some miscellaneous ones, rational use of medicine, where we will do the standard treatment guidelines, essential medicines, drug and therapeutic committee, then some brief ones, then I'll be done with you. You go and write and pass. God willing, next year we meet at AGM. Next week we are going for the AGM. Unfortunately, you can't be part. But next year, I hope you'll be part. Class captain, you promised me that. Class captain.
Hello, sir.
Are you promising me that I will see you during next year's AGM?
Oh, yes. You definitely see me. You see us all.
How are you going to do that? How are you going to do that?
Oh. Once we've studied and we've passed the exams and we qualify as pharmacists.
So once you pass, so pass for me so that you meet. I don't show my face, unfortunately. You guys don't know me. So the only way to see me is when we meet at AGM. So pass. Pass. All the best. All right. Catch you next week.
Thank you, sir.